So just to recap, as we transition to best practices for video ads, we started talking about what video ads are, why it's a great format, is growing tremendously both on desktop and mobile, and it's super engaging. We have some stats that show that so many people are just consuming so much video content on Facebook, discovering new videos. We also discussed why video is not just sorry, we also discuss exactly why video ads can be so compelling to tell the story of your brand. And then we also spend a little bit of time to discuss how you can take people from that brand awareness and brand recall and favorability all the way down to conversion through some features such as video retargeting as well as call to action buttons. So now let's talk a little bit about the best practices and exactly um, why videos can be effective. So the first recommendation and best practices is to make sure that your first 10 seconds are super impactful and that you do all the right things in the first 10 seconds. Because as they say, first impressions matter, and this really is the case on Facebook because people are scrolling through a newsfeed. They're not going to spend time to engage with all 10 minutes of your video. So you really want to optimize for your first 10 seconds. So here's some information and data that we have. We commissioned a study with Nielsen to analyze a lot of the brand effect studies that we did for big branding clients. And we see that there is a substantial lift in all metrics, starting with initial impression and continuing to increase in just the first 10 seconds. So what this really means is that you should really think about how you can capture attention with the consumer in the first 3 seconds to 10 seconds. So people who watched under 10 seconds of video created up to 74% of total campaign value. So, some of my clients would ask me, why do we have such a small view window, 10 seconds? Why is it so short? But that's also because of the very nature of video on Facebook that so much value can be created in the beginning impressions, the beginning seconds, especially with autoplay available. When people scroll through the news feeds and the video starts playing, and they straight away start to think about whether they want to engage with the content, you're actually creating value there because they're going to remember your brand. And if you do a good job, they're going to remember exactly what the message is. So, best practices number one is to optimize your first 3 to 10 seconds. And how you want to do this is to just realize that if you just take your TV commercial and just put it on Facebook, it's not going to be Facebook optimized. If you just take your content on YouTube and do it on Facebook, it might be a little better aligned. But what you really want to think about is the Facebook experience and how you can optimize for that. So what you want to do, for example, in the first 10 seconds is to make sure you show your logo, for example, so that people know exactly who it is they're talking about. And what you also want to do if you are an agency is to make sure that the creative agency that you work with, your media buying agency, understand all these best practices so that they can help you optimize better. The second recommendation is when you're creating the ad, that you really want to choose video views as an objective and also use OCPM. Just keep this in mind, video views, OCPM. Because if you choose this combination, we will do two great things for you. Number one is that the algorithm knows to optimize for the lowest cost per view, which is what you care about, which is one of the better success metrics to think of. And number two, it also makes it autoplay available for your video. Now, autoplay is one of those great powerful features that you really want to have on if possible, because it really drives discovery of your video, right? If you don't select a great thumbnail, what's going to happen is people may not choose to click on your ad. But if a video starts to autoplay, they will discover your video anyway. And if you did all the things that I mentioned about optimizing the 3 to 10 seconds, you're going to capture their attention. I'm just going to take a few moments to clear my nose. Just give me a sec. So some of you may have already seen cinemagraphs. Um, I want to ask you to raise your hands on the interface, but I think that's going to be too difficult. But cinemagraphs is something that all of us know about. If you rewind 10 years, you're going to remember really cheesy GIFs in websites, the little banners of, let's say, somebody hitting someone with a hammer. So it's just going up and down. But since then, cinemagraphs have become a lot more elegant and a lot more sophisticated and very high quality. So cinemagraphs are a great way to bring your images to life. What is a cinemagraph? It basically is like a still photograph, but with an element of movement inside it. So in this cinemagraph that you see over here on the right hand side, I can't play it because it's a bit laggy. What you will actually see is the fountain pouring down and the mist, and it's moving. But the people at the bottom are not moving at all. And this is really exciting because it's better than a photo, and it's actually in some ways probably different and better than a video as well because there's an element of unpredictability. So cinemagraphs are great also because essentially what they are is you're kind of hacking a GIF by creating a cinemagraph and looping it over and over again. And with autoplay on Facebook, this becomes super compelling because as people go through their news feed, they see something that stops them dead in their tracks. And they just stare at the image and they want to find out more about your brand. So what is Flixel? Flixel is just one of the many softwares that you can use to create cinemagraphs. And I encourage you to check it out if you are interested to do this. For companies and agencies who manage clients with big brands, where everything has to go through and make sure that it's compliant with the brand policy, etc. Cinemagraphs are great because they're very bite-sized. They're very easy to get through compliance and checking. You don't have to have 30 seconds where everything has to be vetted. And if you do, it's very easy to create. You can create it with a DSLR in this software within a couple of hours. We even have some clients, some people, some advertisers on Facebook taking advantage of these features in unexpected ways. This is one example that hit the news recently for agents. I think there was an agency journal that showcased these guys. Hotels.com created a few video ads that specifically optimize for silent autoplay. So here you see one of the hotel staff playing a piano, and they intentionally use subtitles to tell their message. And if you actually bothered to click and unmute the video, you would realize that this guy was playing just awfully. He was just banging on the piano. But on autoplay, it actually looks like he knows what he's doing. And that's kind of funny because a lot of people who engage with this had a really good laugh and they always remembered this specific website. So here's another tip. Always put subtitles, even if your video content is in English, because even people may be watching it on the trains, in their offices. They may not have their earphones on. So what you really want to do is to grab their attention. So if you put subtitles in to tell your message, it is a great way for them to not drop, to not bounce. They will not just scroll by. It's very likely that they'll spend a few moments to read and understand what the video is about. So takeaway, use subtitles. So video is very commonly associated with TV advertising where you may think you just want to blast it to everyone in the country or a very, very broad audience. But there is value to reaching only the specific people who will find your story most relevant. And Facebook targeting allows you to do all these things. So always think about targeting when you're doing your video ads. Now, Even better, as we go further into best practices, you must be aware that there's a lot of analytics that are available to you. For example, in Page Insights, you'll be able to see the retention rate, the percent of views at various moments throughout your video, and how that goes from 100% all the way down to the final number of percentage of people who watch a video to the end. They also share statistics like average time watched, how many people watch at least 3 seconds, or the entire video. This is great because it helps you optimize your video content. For example, this curve looks pretty smooth from 100% to about 50%. But sometimes you see videos where the drop-off rate is just really, really high, either at the beginning, the middle, or the end. And this gives you clues on where people are getting bored and deciding to leave. So you can then decide to optimize your video and slice it so that it becomes more engaging the next time. So we're going to go into case studies. We're going to take just 1 minute to check if there are any significant questions. There will be another Q&A at the end. So go ahead and type your questions in and we'll answer one or two questions. So we've got a great question about what if you can't get 1,000 views a day, and can you still use retargeting? The answer to that is no. You need at least 1,000 people. But there are ways to achieve this 1,000 quite affordably. Some of the strategies that you could do this is number one, to focus your targeting more. As I mentioned earlier, if you are doing too broad targeting, let's say you are trying to tell the story of your brand, about sporting equipment, and you're targeting 18 to 65 in Malaysia, and it's just a huge audience. Maybe it's not resonating with everyone. So what you could do is try and tighten that targeting a little bit more so that the people that you are trying to show the ad to are super engaged, and then makes it a lot easier to get a lower CPV, cost per view. Other things that you can do also include concentrating your budget. So maybe you have, let's say, $5,000 to spend over a month, and you're not actually hitting it. You're always getting about 800 views. You may consider concentrating that budget and spending that same amount over a shorter period of time. So it gets the reach that you need, and you get the impressions that you need, the views that you need to retarget. Thank you for that question. We will answer the rest later on. I see a few more questions coming up. So we're going to go into a few case studies. Here is Quadlock. Quadlock is a great case study done in Australia about a company that manufactures very specialized equipment to help mount your mobile phones onto bicycles and other, for example, your cars as well. So they had a goal. They wanted to find new customers and maximize their return on ad spend because they felt that this product was great and it fulfilled a need that a lot of people had frustrations with but had no outlet. They had no idea what to buy and where to buy it. So it was partly an issue of brand awareness as well as conversion, making sure that they are not a big brand, so they can't spend millions of dollars just doing branding. So they had to walk that fine line in bringing people into the top of the funnel and bringing them all the way down. So what the solution was they started to run targeted video ads followed by link ads and photo ads in both mobile and desktop. They also leveraged a lot of the other capabilities that we have, such as custom audiences to do very smart retargeting, and lookalike audiences to prospect and find new customers who look most like their existing customers. So what kind of results did they see? So they saw a tremendous uplift in results, which they were super happy about. So they got a huge boost in the page post engagement for every one of their posts for that were video, and their return on ad spend also increased. So a lot of times people may worry that if they do things like video, their return on ad spend is going to go down. But if you do it the right way, you can actually increase your returns, not just in the long term, but in the short and medium term. They also derived a ton of website visits that came through that single video post, and a lot of that 63% of their referral traffic to the website came directly from Facebook. So here's a really good example of how a small medium business leveraged the Facebook video ads to really grow their business in a big way. And I encourage you to go to their website and check out their video. And we're now back to FAQ. So the takeaways from uh, the case studies is to remember that you don't just have to be a huge brand with $1 million budgets to do video ads, right? P&G, Lever, Coca-Cola, McDonald's, all these people are very active on Facebook. You'll probably see their video ads as well from time to time, and they're obviously done very well. But small and medium businesses can also do it because it is affordable, it is easy to produce, and it is effective. So now we're going to do FAQ. I already have one question prepared. Please go ahead and start typing in the dialog on the right hand side. So the question is, what is the fatigue period for video ads? So video ads, the frequency that you should watch for is to monitor at which point the performance starts to dip. And this really depends on the nature of your video content. Some video content have a very long life, a lot of longevity, because it is super engaging. And it's also a function of how much your budget and spend is. For example, if you have decided to use reach and frequency to reach 50-70% of the Singapore population in a week, the fatigue might set in faster. But if you have a more modest budget and you're trying to spread it out, it's not necessary. The fatigue doesn't set in as quickly as your budget slowly shows it to the entire audience. Just give me a second while we look for more questions. Okay, we have another question. Thank you for this question. The question is, how do you do ad sequencing? There are a couple of ways to do this to varying levels of control and cost. If you are an agency, if you're a managed client, you have access to something that we call reach and frequency. And if you use reach and frequency, you have very precise control over ad sequencing. You can actually show specific ads. For example, you might say add A, then B, then C, with at least 3 days in between. This level of control is possible. So this is great. And the other way to do it is to just have video content that you show to a specific audience. And for example, you might say you have 3 creatives. The first 2 weeks, you might say creative A, the next 2 weeks, creative B, and then creative C. And a great way to do this is as you progress, you want to be using your retargeting audiences to retarget and to show the content that people have already watched A to watch B to watch C. So I've got a few FAQs lined up here, and we'll carry on with the questions at the end. Um, a really good question that we will cover before we end is, what kind of ad policies do we have for video content, and what about copyright for sound and music? So one frequently asked question is, what bit type should I need to use to ensure my video ads automatically play? The answer was covered earlier, but here's a bit more context. Videos will not autoplay if you choose CPC bidding, or if you set custom bids within OCPM. So to really take maximum advantage, I must remind you and reiterate that to autoplay, you want to choose video views and OCPM. For people who have used or are interested in using reach and frequency as a buying way, it also qualifies for autoplay. Video ads using page post engagement objective will reach and have some autoplay, but you should expect lower view rates compared with video ads using the video views objective. So take away video views and OCPM. That's the best way to unlock autoplay. Next up is the next question is how many autoplay impressions will my campaign receive? So this is a question that we get a lot as account managers as well. And you will see a fair number of video ads clicking to play depending on the user set the preference. Because every person would have a different setting preference, different connectivity, different devices, which all determine how much autoplay they get. And this is dependent on, in some ways, the country, and in some ways, the kinds of people, the people that you're targeting. So high quality videos are great because low exalt rates tend to get more autoplay distribution. If you have videos that are not very engaging, or what may happen is that if people X out and don't want to watch it, a much lower proportion of your videos, your impressions will be autoplay. So to reiterate, this is again the similar point from the first one. You really want to be choosing video views and OCPM, not CPC. The third question is, what is the minimum amount of video views that a video needs to receive before my client or myself can retarget them? So we covered this earlier, but this is a bit more details. The campaign needs at least 1,000 views per day. That's a 24-hour window. If you get 999 per day, the audiences will not be collected. So if let's say you had a campaign that runs for 7 days and only six of those days you get over 1,000 views, that means you will not be able to capture the 999 from the last day. So let's answer the rest of your questions now before we wrap it up. So the question about the policy regarding video content is something that we have detailed policies, and I'll share just a few of them here. Number one is many of you are super familiar with the 20% rule, and that applies for the video ads. You really want to be, and this applies specifically to the screenshot, the thumbnail. So what you want to do is if you're choosing a custom thumbnail, or if you're choosing one of the thumbnails that we are offering you in the create flow, what you want to do is you want to pick one of those without a lot of text. So choosing the thumbnail is really important because it can really drive up engagement and click to play rates in countries where autoplay may not be as prevalent. An example is if any of you have been following the recent trailer for the Suicide Squad in Comic-Con. It was very engaging because right after that, a lot of people are following up with video ads about that trailer with the Joker's photograph, and which everyone is anticipating to be in the movie. So the thumbnail is really important. Choose the right one without a lot of text. Another policy that you should also be aware of is using Facebook assets. It's very common for people who do videos at the end or at the beginning to put their logos, follow us on Instagram, find our page on Facebook. But you really want to be careful here because if you superimpose the assets that are not approved, your ad will not be approved to run. What you want to do is go to www.facebook.com/brand. Over there, you'll be able to download the high resolution PNGs of all the Facebook assets. And we will also share very specific guidelines on do's and don'ts. and you really want to avoid using the wrong logo or the wrong way. One of two other policies would be please make sure that your video is very high quality and not pixelated. If it's very low quality, it may end up getting disapproved as well. Just one more second. We're just gonna pull out one more question before we call it a day. So we have a great question about when should we use video ads on Facebook besides just doing a brand kind of storytelling. Um, DR e-commerce advertisers should also find a lot of value in video ads because you can run one of two major kind of ads. One is just telling the story of your brand, your entire brand, not just specific products. And clients who have done this have seen up to 56% increase in conversion rates. This is quite significant because if you think about it, people may not know about your brand to even consider buying it. So this is a great way to drive people very quickly down through the funnel. The other way is to focus on products, where some products are either emotive or informational. So some products really need something, a lifestyle kind of thing to get people excited so they buy. So video ads are a great way to do that. The other kind of products that need some help are products that are not easily understood, and I have two examples. The first example is I had a client trying to sell, I believe, a 3D pen, which this was some time ago. And honestly, when I saw the picture, I was like, what is a 3D pen? I had no clue. But when they tried using video ads, for example, you could see children using the pen, drawing little 3D sculptures very quickly. And that's super exciting because I immediately know what it is and I immediately know whether I want to buy it. So you can also use it to drive traffic because of the call to action button that I mentioned earlier. So it's a very strong DR kind of solution, direct response. The other way to do it, the other use case that I mentioned earlier that you can also use video ads to drive people through with the call to action button is when your product is maybe an app and people don't really know the experience or use case. So you really can show them through video ads, like what is the experience going to be like? And that's a great way to tell that story as well. Thank you for those questions. We're now going to wrap up. Most of you should be seeing my screen with the summary. Number one thing to remember about today, now that we've covered, 55 minutes already, is that digital video is skyrocketing. And a big chunk of that is also coming from Facebook. And a lot of this is coming from mobile. People are on the trains, they're walking around, and they're engaging with video content every day. Just one last statistic to leave you with this last point, just one data point, which would be more than 50% of people who log into Facebook every single day watch videos, at least one video. And the opportunity is for you to be part of that experience, to help them learn about your brand. Number two, video ads on Facebook are a really engaging way to tell your brand story. Just think about the ice bucket challenge and the amount of views that generated. So always think about whether your brand can use video ads to grow your business, starting with people at top of the funnel and all the way down to conversion. Which leads me to my third point. Facebook video ads is not just for branding. So let's dispel that misconception. It is also a compelling way to assist conversion, to drive people from being aware of your brand to liking your brand to considering buying to actually buying. We have a lot of great tools to help you there, including retargeting and call to action buttons. And the last thing to remind you is it is not optimal to just take whatever you're doing on television and just plopping it over into Facebook. You really want to think about optimizing your video specifically for Facebook and observing best practices, which we have lined out earlier for you guys. Some of you may be thinking, if this is your first webinar with us, will I be getting these materials? We'll be uploading the video and the content on the website in a couple of days. Uh, so please watch out for that. So the key takeaway is to consider leveraging Facebook video ads to help grow your brand, help your customers discover and like and engage with your business and brand today. So as we come to a close, I'd like to really encourage you, if you've never run Facebook ads, to try running it today. You might have video content that you have somewhere stored in your computer. You may want to try and dust it off and see how that performs for you. But more importantly, I think it's great if you think about more strategically at a bigger level how video can help tell your brand story and drive people to buy something today. So please go ahead and try it as soon as you can. Right after this survey, there's going to be a form, so please fill it up so that we know what you think about this webinar and what other webinars what other topics you want to hear about in the weeks to come. And the next webinar that's coming up is by my colleague, Andy McKee. That's him. And he's going to be talking about a super important thing about digital marketing, which is measurement. So he's going to be talking about specifically things like um, conversion tracking, for example, which is a great way to attribute and optimize your campaigns. This is a fairly intermediate kind of webinar, and I highly encourage you to attend it, whatever your level of expertise is. So thank you for your time. This brings us to the end. I hope you enjoyed that webinar. Please do come back to the website to find out about new webinars that are coming up, to download past webinar materials, and if you want to watch the video, it's available. And we'll see you in 3 weeks for measurement with Andy. Thank you.